Okay. Oh. A very good evening. Welcome to the 7th episode of the SPYL Public Engagements. I'm Emilia Uupindi Mutenda, and I'll be moderating the discussion this evening. In this episode, we will be discussing the government's SME financing strategy / policies with a specific focus on on the funding opportunities available for young entrepreneurs. Our esteemed panelists for this evening joining us via Zoom are Mr. Robert Ayman. He is the head of SME financing from the Development Bank of Namibia. Dr. Michael Humavindu, Deputy Director at the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and SME Development. Ms. Aune Ulumbu, she is the Youth Officer in the Employment Subdivision at the Ministry of Sports, Youth and National Services. Ms. Kalista Swart Courses, she's the Director at the National Youth Council. And we are also joined by Mr. Florian Mwetulundila, who is the chairperson of the Association of the Unemployed Artisans in Namibia. Welcome, dear panelists, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And welcome to our viewers as well, pardon me. To put our discussion this evening into context, I would start off by saying that young people all over the world are faced with the problem of unemployment, and statistics are even higher for the African region at large. As for Namibia, according to the 2018 figures by the Namibia Statistics Agency, youth unemployment stood at 46.1%. The youth population constitutes a crucial resource, but without sufficient job prospects, it's a resource that will remain untapped. Youth unemployment is a problem that has received policy intervention and attention. Economic policy in many African countries has seen a shift towards supporting entrepreneurship and small, medium enterprises. In Namibia, active policies and strategies for funding young entrepreneurs have been undertaken. This include the SME financing strategy, skill-based lending facility for the youth, the 121 youth constituents, 121 youth enterprises, pardon me, and the national policy on micro, small, and medium enterprises. Considering the crucial role that entrepreneurship and small, medium enterprises play in employment creation and in economic growth at large, this episode aims to discuss and share information on the existing funding programs and interventions available for young entrepreneurs. Just to get right into the discussion, before we get into the main, before we hear from our panelists, I'll give the floor to Mr. Florian Mwetulundila, who is the president, or who is the chairperson of the Unemployed Artisans in Namibia, who will just briefly narrate to us the struggles that the artisans face when they are trying to find employment. Mr. Mwetulundila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, moderator. A good evening to all the esteemed panelists. My name is Florian Mwetulundila, the chairman of the Association of Unemployed Artisans in Namibia, and I would like to appreciate this opportunity that you have afforded us. The Association of Unemployed Artisans, briefly, it's just a national youth initiative that exists in all 14 regions in our country, constituted by the VTC graduates, specifically for those that have studied trades related to construction, as well as mechanical. So the purpose really was just for us to come together under one umbrella so that we then engage government as well as the private sector to try and see what kind of opportunities can we exploit to try and create employment for ourselves. So far we have really come a long way, and I really would want to thank our government, which entered into a memorandum of understanding with the association last year, and this led to a pilot project which then created employment for more than 80 graduate artisans just opposite the old State House, which was a renovation of 4 houses. The association has got a training arm as well, which has got a mandate of actually educating our artisans and equipping them with basic knowledge when it comes to business registration, drawing up business proposals, as well as cash flow projections, which are really key instruments which are required by funding institutions like DBN, for example, for our artisans to get funding. Just to summarize quite common challenges that most of our artisans are facing, according to the research that we have conducted, one of the challenges is really financing. Despite the really efforts that our government have put in place, quite brilliant interventions from government, our artisans continue to complain that the process is still quite difficult to get through into, and some of them have even given up on actually applying for this funding. And another huge challenge that I have actually noted is that there is a huge lack of creativity and innovation in the business proposals amongst our artisans. And for this, we then engaged quite a number of stakeholders to really come and brainstorm with the artisans in terms of really coming up with viable, tangible, and bankable business proposals. I would as well want to mention that most of our artisans are actually stressing that our government is ought to actually establish at least another extra VTC, or at least to upgrade the existing VTCs to be able to offer at least up to the last level of training in order to enable our graduate artisans to become manufacturers instead of just mere service providers, because one of the challenges that most of our artisans are facing is that they are unable to penetrate into the industry of manufacturing, as opposed to other countries like South Africa and other Western world, whereby we've seen utensils and equipments like electrical generators, for example, or pipeline. You mentioned them. These are all manufactured by artisans and engineers in that country. While here at home, our artisans leave our VTCs without having any skills in manufacturing. And I believe that should our artisans really be equipped with skills and knowledge that would enable them to become manufacturers, they would be able to actually penetrate or to actually acquire funding easily from the existing funding facilities like DBN. I think finally, I just want to really again thank the presence of the representative from DBN, because I think I have got quite a number of questions that I would want to pose perhaps at a later stage. So thank you for now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mwetulundila, for that brief narrative of and also introducing the Association of Artisans. I'm sure all our viewers out there who are VTC graduates or who are artisans would like to join. They will surely be interested in this information, and also for summarizing and highlighting some of the challenges that our artisans are facing in accessing funding. I think this is the right program, like I said, for all our young entrepreneurs and all aspiring entrepreneurs, as we are now going to move into the discussion to look at what programs are available for young entrepreneurs. So in line with the government's micro, small and small medium enterprises financing strategy, with a specific focus on young entrepreneurs, what funding programs are available for young people? So I think to get into this discussion, we are going to start off the discussion with Mr. Ayman. I would allow you to first go first and tell us from the side of the DBN, what funding programs are available for young entrepreneurs? Mr. Ayman, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity. Also, I want to say good evening to everybody that has signed on some of the platforms. Yes, let me just start off by saying that DBN has got a dedicated function with regard to SME financing. But within the umbrella of SME financing, you would obviously find especially youth and women entrepreneurs. where there is a special emphasis for this type or these type of client. Now, if one were to look at the programs the DBN is currently having, the first and foremost one would be our normal SME lending lines, normal SME financing. This is product that is also available for young entrepreneurs. But obviously there is some obstacles that young entrepreneurs experience in that. And for that reason, we have made different products dedicated to young entrepreneurs. And I think the one from the top of my head that I can talk about is the skill-based skill-based financing facility that is especially looking towards artisans, but it's also looking at other young professionals, including dentists, doctors, etc., etc. Now, this is a dedicated fund that is ring-fenced, so it only looks at young entrepreneurs below the age of 35 years. And this is obviously a product that is trying to speak to the young entrepreneurs in the way of low collateral or no collateral. Other than that, other facilities that's also available for young entrepreneurs, not necessarily through the DBN, but through our networks, is the credit guarantee scheme. This is a scheme that is accessible through the commercial banks at this juncture, First National Bank as well as Standard Bank, whereby the DBN would provide guarantees to some entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs included, that has got viable and sustainable businesses, but lacks the collateral. And the product provides up to 60% of your collateral needs. So 60% of collateral a young entrepreneur wouldn't have to come up with, because that is already covered by virtue of the guarantee scheme. I would end here for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ayman. You have mentioned two funding initiatives or programs for young people under the Development Bank, which is the skills-based financing, and also the credit guarantee scheme through the commercial banks. Maybe just a follow-up question: what are the criteria, or who qualifies, for example, for the skill-based financing? You mentioned artisans. You also mentioned young professionals. Maybe just to give an example for our viewers, so that we are all on the same page, who qualifies for this?
Thank you, and that's a good question. Now, because this product is dedicated to young entrepreneurs, there is some requirements, and probably the main requirement is certain qualifications. For artisans, you have to have at least an NQF3 level qualification to be able to access this facility. As for young other skill-based entrepreneurs, you will have to have at least up to a level of NQF6 qualification to be able to access this. As for the guarantee scheme, there is obviously no criteria in terms of qualifications that a young entrepreneur will have to have. They simply have to have a viable and sustainable business plan to present to the bank.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayman. I think we have heard that. Just to summarize, for skill-based financing, it's a qualification, NQF level 3 if you're an artisan, and NQF level 6 for young professionals. And then for the credit guarantee scheme, you actually just have to have a viable business plan, a viable business. So thank you, Mr. Ayman. Over to Mr. Dr. Humavundu. I know that the Ministry of Industrialization houses the SME policy. What funding opportunities are available for young people under the ministry?
Right, thank you very much, Tala. And also I greet everyone that is logged on to this webinar. Under the MSME National Policy of 2016, we have narrated a few interventions that are key to ensure that we can support startups. And I want to reflect my reply also in terms of what the Artisans Association has mentioned. Now, when it comes to the issue of unemployment, we tie that up with poverty and inequality as the three major challenges of the country. But also when it comes to entrepreneurship, global entrepreneurship monitors indexes have consistently shown we are scoring very low as a country, and especially among the youth, in terms of entrepreneurial drive. Therefore, it became imperative for the ministry first to look at the institutional structure to support entrepreneurial behavior. For that, we intervene with what we call Empretech Namibia, which train entrepreneurs in entrepreneurial behavioral models, like mental models, not necessarily how to do your accounting or how to do your books, but in terms of how to act and how to behave as an entrepreneur. So far, we have trained more than 96 entrepreneurs across the country, of which the youth constitute quite a major part. Now, the second challenge that he has mentioned pertains to product development in terms of how do you then start moving into manufacturing or in terms of industrialization. For that, we have partnered with some other stakeholders as well as a ministry and created the Startup Namibia Hub here in Katutura. Along with it, we have also created the digital center within that startup hub. The aim is to train at least 300 Namibians into startups in terms of supporting their business idea into a product development. Currently, we have registered 90. And basically, all what you need to do is to be able to have an idea and you apply and hopefully you can get onto those programs. Now, when it comes to specific facilities, because we have also realized with our training in terms of Empretech Namibia as well as a startup, we realized that the access to finance, which the artisans also expressed, continues to be a major hamstring when it comes to entrepreneurs now trying to get into the mode of production and into running the business. We have also worked with a few stakeholders and we have several programs or interventions. One of it is called the SDG Impact Facility, which we launched last year as a ministry. There we provide funding to various entities pertaining to specific windows that we launch. Late last year, we funded up to 2.5 million to 35 entities, of which the majority were youth and women. And the artisans were the first sectors, along with the manufacturing sector, to get that funding. And that was launched in November 2020. Just now, we closed the second window for tourism, hospitality, and manufacturing again. And we are going to announce another 35 successful entrepreneurs to the tune of 3.2 million Namibian dollars. We are going to launch in July another window for the SDG Impact Facility, now for the sectors that covers the renewable energy as well as information technology. A second facility that we have as a ministry, that we have been having as a ministry for some time now, but which was temporarily stopped, but for which we are going to restart this year, is the Popular Equipment Aid Scheme. We still do not have a lot of funding to increase that envelope, but we'll launch it later this year with some bits of funds. And that will also ensure that the youth and especially women will be able then to participate. And normally the Equipment Aid Scheme is targeted to those that are basically having an idea to start a business, not necessarily those that are into business or that are running an enterprise. The third facility that we have as a ministry is the Industrial Upgrading and Modernization Program, the IUMP, which has been running since 2012. Last year, we also managed to support 42 entrepreneurs to the tune of 7.5 million Namibian dollars. And we hope to also launch another activity towards that program towards the end of the year so that we can support at least another 30. That's our target. We continue developing these programs and facilities with stakeholders such as the SADC Secretariat in Gaborone for the IVMP, the SDG facility. We have our partners, the Environmental Investment Fund, as well as Standard Bank Namibia, that is also coming in terms of the private commercial funding. And then the other things that the Artisan Association also mentioned are also quite key in terms of training the entrepreneurs to become manufacturers. At the moment, the ministry focuses on a few sectors such as gemstone, jewelry manufacturing, charcoal production, as well as metal fabrication, as well as cosmetics. For those interventions, we have also trained more than 100 entrepreneurs, mostly youth and women, to be able then to become the next phase of manufacturing in the country. With that, I submit.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. You have mentioned a number of programs under the ministry. Maybe just a quick follow-up question is just maybe to briefly highlight some of these programs in terms of what are the criteria or who qualifies? What are the criteria to qualify for some of these programs? I know for some of them, like for example, the training program for young entrepreneurs, you've mentioned that you just need to have an idea, and the startup, these are more if you have an idea and you want in terms of support to develop the idea. But for some of the other programs, what are the requirements for me as a young person to be able to apply?
Yes, well, it depends, and because we also have to ensure that as a ministry, we support across the spectrum enterprise development. However, if you want to get into the Empretech Namibia program that basically trains you in terms of entrepreneurship mentor models, you just have to be registered as an entity. Those are the basic things across many of these programs. We do not necessarily have specific qualifications, requirements for these programs, because, for example, if you want to do gemstone jewelry, we really try to bring on board recent graduates in grade 12, or even those that might have done a diploma somewhere, but there is not necessarily a hard constraint in terms of requirements of entry. We basically want to make sure that we are able then to push the entrepreneurs that are able then to come up to be able to do business. So it is not really restrictive as such, but more open-minded.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. Moving over to you, Ms. Ulumbu. What are some of the funding programs available for young entrepreneurs through the Ministry of Youth? I think your mic is muted.
Okay, good evening. Good evening to all the panelists as well. The Ministry of Sport, Youth and National Service have various programs that support young entrepreneurs in terms of training, capacity building, as well as funding. One of those is Namibia Youth Credit Scheme. It's a program that supports young entrepreneurs that want to start or to improve their businesses. We support them in terms of training as well as funding at a micro level. We also at the ministry have a program that came with the HPP, Harambee Prosperity Plan, which is 121 rural youth constituency enterprises. It's 121 enterprises in all the 121 constituencies of the 14 regions in the country, and whereby all young people are enabled to establish their enterprises and form groups whereby they will then create employment for themselves and for others as well in the constituencies. Apart from that, we also have a program that was recently launched last year towards the end, which is the self-help group. It's a program that supports horticulture, mushroom, and as well as charcoal. It's also in 14 regions, whereby young people are also allowed to then venture into these interventions and then create employment for themselves and for others as well.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Ulumbu. Maybe just a follow-up question. You have mentioned 3 programs, which is one, the Namibia Youth Credit Scheme. The second one is the 121 rural youth enterprises in all the constituencies, and then the self-help group. So for some of this, if a young person, for example, in the regions or in the rural areas, where do I find this information? Is it available maybe, for example, with the councillors, or where do I find this information? And what are some of the requirements that I need to adhere to, or what is needed for me to apply, or who qualifies for this?
Who qualifies is a young person between the ages of 10 to 35 unemployed, out of school, and you're willing to be part of the enterprise in terms of the 121. And for the Namibia Youth Credit Scheme, you are also willing to start your own enterprise or improve your own enterprise. Information-wise, information is available countrywide. We have youth offices, and we have also youth centers in all the 14 regions, whereby a young person can go and get information about all these programs that the ministry is offering.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Ulumbu. Ms. Kalista, I know under the National Youth Council, we have the Credit for Youth in Business. Maybe if you can just share with us more information around this funding program, and who does it fund, who qualifies for it?
Okay, good evening and good evening to viewers. Maybe before I touch on the specific program, which is the CYB, it will be important just to give a brief background in terms of what National Youth Council, what other products are there that National Youth Council is assisting young entrepreneurs with. And basically, maybe just a little background about National Youth Council. National Youth Council, in fact, is an umbrella body for the young people within Namibia. We have structures all over the country, meaning that we are actually equally also a membership-based institution where young people or youth groups are affiliating to National Youth Council. Secondly, we do have 121 constituency structures as well as 14 regional structures. So basically, National Youth Council support youth from all angles of the country. We do have different type of methods in how we assist young entrepreneurs. It could be through co-funding, grants, or either a collateral provision of collateral to the young entrepreneurs. Now, basically, co-funding, I will say that particularly when the regional youth forums are receiving funding, for example, for agricultural projects, through other means of funding, for example, let's say this time through Social Security, then there is always the requirement that they should co-fund a certain percentage of amount of what they have to get. And that National Youth Council now come into that to make sure that National Youth Council is paying the percentage that is required on behalf of particularly for the Regional Youth Forum. If I could take an example, is that Oshana Regional Youth Forum got funding from Social Security to the tune of 2.5 million for an agricultural project. And then they were requested to pay an upfront payment of 10%. National Youth Council play that role where we have paid on behalf of the Regional Youth Forum at 250,000 in order to ensure that the young people within Oshana region are benefiting through agricultural business processes. The same with Oshana, with Ohamvona Regional Youth Forum. The funding they got from Social Security was equally the same amount, which was 2.5 million. Again, National Youth Council has to co-fund for that, where we have injected 250,000 as well. Going back to the grants, we do provide funding to youth businesses through a process of buying equipment. Currently, we have an equipment aid fund where we have called young people to submit their individual business plans. Those with best ideas has been funded to the tune of 25,000 each business, 6 from each region, meaning in total, we are currently in the process of buying equipment for 84 businesses owned by young people. The CYP, it's a collateral fund, which is implemented in partnership with Bank Windhoek. Now, the reason why we have chosen a bank or either are implementing this with a bank is to bank the unbankable, because you know that young people are faced with meeting the requirements that the banks are normally asking, which has to do with security. And that is basically what the young people don't have. Now, National Youth Council, we have initiated this product to ensure that we at least provide that collateral. Now, the collateral is shared between the bank and National Youth Council. National Youth Council sharing the risk of 60% and the bank sharing the risk of 40%.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Kalista, and also for just adding on to all the other funding support and also programs that the NYC is currently offering to young entrepreneurs. Maybe just to move into another question, I think some of the panelists, for example, Dr. has touched on it a bit, but maybe just to go back to Mr. Ayman. In terms of support for young entrepreneurs, what support programs or initiatives is the bank offering for young entrepreneurs?
Thank you very much. If you will allow me, just before I delve into that, I think it might also be opportune just to elaborate a little bit on the products, especially the skill base for artisans and young professionals, just to give a little bit of context, because there might be questions later on, and this could also possibly address them. Obviously, because this product is geared towards young people, the age restriction or the limitation is 35 years. The amounts that we make available under this facility is between $50,000 and $1 million. Now, keep in mind that the average loan or the minimum loan in the normal course of business for Development Bank is $150,000. But because we are trying to target as many young entrepreneurs as possible, we have lowered that amount to $150,000. I've talked about the NQF 3 qualification for artisans, as well as the NQF 6 level qualifications for young professionals that is required. Obviously, with that, we also look at the strength of a business plan that is being presented, because at the end of the day, the amount for which the entrepreneur applies must still be justified by virtue of his or her own research into this. I thought just to give a little bit of context. And obviously, we are targeting unemployed. We will not allow young entrepreneurs to borrow from the bank under the scheme and still be gainfully employed, because potentially they could open their employment to other young people. And the idea is for young people to employ other young people. Now, when it comes to the support programs that we have, obviously the provision of funding alone is never enough. With that, there is also certain things that you will have to do to try and ensure success for entrepreneurs. Doesn't matter in which category, but especially more so when it comes to young entrepreneurs. So one of the items that we obviously do in terms of support, in addition to providing the funding, is what we call mentorship and training. Now, mentorship and training, the whole purpose of that, we've appointed mentors. So whenever you are successful in obtaining a loan, we will appoint a mentor, or we can appoint a mentor depending on your skill shortages. You might be a brilliant plumber, but there might be some limitations in terms of your ability to manage your books, your ability to manage your financing, etc. And the purpose of this mentor is obviously to assist the client over a period of time to ensure that they have the best chance of survival and success within running their businesses. What we also do in addition to that, especially young entrepreneurs that obtain funding, we also go through a process of induction. Now, what it simply means is that sometimes an entrepreneur obtains funding, and the whole process around funding and what his or her responsibilities are is not very clear. Now, what induction is trying to do is to have a number of entrepreneurs that were successful in obtaining funding, to sit them around the table. Obviously, currently we're doing it virtually, and take them through the whole process. Now you've been successful in obtaining the funding. What's next? What is the process that needs to be followed to make sure that the legal documents is properly signed? What is the process if there's any conditions that was assigned? How do you go about to satisfy those conditions? When will disbursement take place? After the disbursement, how will your loan be treated? How many months of grace period would you have? Because all that is contained in your loan agreement. But after that, what is expected from you in terms of repayment of your loan, in terms of providing information to the bank on an annual basis in what would happen in the event that you cannot meet your loan conditions, or you cannot meet the repayment for your loan. What DBN normally does, especially with young entrepreneurs, obviously a bank remains a bank, but we are also trying to be in tune with what the entrepreneurs experience in terms of the struggles that they might have. So we would, in most likelihood, when an entrepreneur runs into trouble, we would look at how can we help him to get back to some performance where he can in future repay his loan. So the idea is never to call up facilities or pull the plug. The idea is to try and work with the entrepreneur in trying to get back to the level of performance where he would be in a position to be able to service the bank. I've talked about the guarantee scheme now, although this is not necessarily direct, it is something that is being offered. Now, the commercial banks, obviously, as I've mentioned before, First National Bank, as well as Standard Bank, is currently offering these facilities as well already. We are also looking at the rest of the commercial banks because we're trying to reach as many entrepreneurs as possible. So we also look at the rest of the financial enterprises or financial institution banks specific to see if we can sign them up to make sure that clients that banks with, doesn't matter where, NetBank or wherever, that they don't necessarily have to go to another bank to access funding, but they can go to their own bank where they have a track record and where they have an account and hopefully access funding by virtue of that. So this is part and parcel of the support services. Now, obviously, the bank cannot assist entrepreneurs to design and develop their business plans, but we also provide guidance where need be, because we have to draw a line between what we can do for a client and what we can't do. You can imagine that if we draw up the business plan and the business fails, the client will point to the bank and say, but you are responsible for the drawing up of the business plan, and this is your figures that's contained in my cash flow. So we cannot do that, but we can provide guidance and as far as possible to guide entrepreneurs in terms of what is required. And this is where our analysts would normally fulfill and play that role. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Eamon, for that, for outlining those support programs that the DBN is offering to young entrepreneurs or beneficiaries of this funding programs. Maybe just to go back to you, Ms. Ulungu, in terms of the programs, in terms of the programs, just to find out a bit more info in terms of how many people have benefited from some of these programs that you have mentioned under the Ministry of Youth.
Yes, let me start with Namibia Youth Credit Scheme. Like I said, we provide training, we provide loans to these young entrepreneurs. So far, we have trained over 10,000 young people across the country, and we have given loans to 8,000. We have created employment which is over 9,000. And we have given a loan loans amounting to 20 million, which is revolving. We also, in terms of 121, the ministry is working in collaboration with stakeholders like DBN, Agribank, and all the other stakeholders that could come in to support the program, because it's not a one-man show. The ministry, of course, cannot take up the funding of all the 121. But at the moment, we have selected 28 enterprises, 28 constituents that are to benefit from this program through DBN, and 8 million that was pledged through DBN will assist these 28 enterprises. We have submitted business plans to Agribank. Agribank is busy with these business plans that are constituencies that are into agribusiness. And the others that have remained, we are then calling upon all the stakeholders, corporate organizations, non-governmental organizations, and of course any individuals that will come up to take a step and fund these enterprises. With a self-help group, we have started with charcoal, we have started with mushroom and horticulture. It has started in all the 14 regions. With charcoal, we have trained 39 young people. They were trained in civic training. They are now just waiting for the first phase of the actual production of charcoal that will be done at Berkaukas. So because of the situation, we are unable to take these young people to the site where they are going to be to start with the actual production. But as soon as the situation of COVID normalizes or get better, then we'll of course go on with this program. With the mushroom also, we have started with 6 regions that have benefited, and other regions will follow suit as soon as resources are available and the situation allows that we cover all the 14 regions. Which other one? Yeah, I think that's all for now.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Lungu. Coming back to you, Dr. Himabundu, we just wanted to find out what are some of the constraints that prohibit young entrepreneurs from accessing funding from some of the programs that you have listed in your introduction? Doctor, I think your mic is muted.
My apologies. Thank you very much. I'll be very general. These constraints have been cemented for a long time now. And the ministry also did a private sector survey last year, 2 of them, which also then re-emphasized these issues. And I'll be very, very general. One thing that we have in our country is that we have very old laws around credit agreements. And there's some work being done now to change the credit agreements, because the old credit agreements were focused on hard collateral. They were not giving you the space to be able to offer movable collateral so that you are able to get a loan. And hopefully, after a period of 33 years, we should be able to see these laws now being changed. The other thing also has to do with, and let's talk about the young entrepreneur that wants to go into agriculture, for example. And by the way, Agribank is a very good facility now called Women and Youth Facility for Agriculture. And hopefully they can also be given a platform one day here to discuss that facility. But land tenure has consistently been a major issue in terms of allowing the young people that might have a hectare or half a hectare somewhere in the communal area to be able to offer that as part of their collateral to then get access to the loan. And that is why the ministry and also our colleagues, partner ministries here or agencies here, such as the one where Calista is, continue to emphasize on the grant aspects thereof. But our grant aspects thereof can only help you to scale up to a certain level. Beyond a certain level, you are most likely to need commercial funding or DBN funding or Agribank funding. And that is really where the major issues becomes much more pronounced in terms of supporting that artisan or that agricultural entrepreneur, youth entrepreneur, to be able then to scale up business. The other issue obviously has to do also with the fact that there's a lack of information around the whole MSME or SME sector. And that also has to do with, it was long identified that we need an SME credit bureau that is able then to be able to create enough data around youth entrepreneurs, around SME entrepreneurs in the country, so that it gives the comfort to the commercial lender or to DBN lender or to Agribank lender to be able to understand the market better and to be able to extend those loans. So those are the common main theme issues that we have as a country. And I hope that with time, we should start working on these policy issues and resolve them to open the access to funding are constrained and made it much more accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Doctor. Ms. Kalista, maybe just to come back to you, in terms of the programs that you have mentioned under the NYC in support of young entrepreneurs, how many people have benefited? How many young people have benefited from these programs? And also, what from your experience or from your knowledge, what are the constraints that prohibits young people from also being able to access this funding or this support?
Okay, basically, maybe if I could start with the credit scheme, the collateral scheme. The scheme was initiated to complement the other existing SME products. Therefore, the size that is being given is very small. The maximum amount is only 20,000 Namibian dollars. Now, basically, what we, as National Youth Council, we don't want to duplicate what other institutions are doing, or either what our mother body ministry is doing. Now, at the time when we initiated CYB, within the youth fraternity, we have a Namibia Youth Credit Scheme that was solely earmarked for the young people. That's why, and the product under the ministry was for those who want aspiring young entrepreneurs, those who want to start a business, and also existing businesses. Now with CYB, we only targeted those who are already in business, the reason being to complement the product of the ministry. And secondly, other provisions or other exemptions were made for the VTC graduates, as well as the National Youth Service graduates. The funding is actually a collateral. However, one of the biggest challenges, or maybe perhaps if I could say, is that first we started the project only as a pilot product in 6 regions, and later on in 2014, it was expanded to all 14 regions. We have to date provide loans to the value of 2.3 million for 330 loans only. Although we have trained more people to take up these loans, it's unfortunate that the young people are not taking it up as we are anticipating for them to do so. The reason being, first of all, some are not able to provide the 10% upfront payment that is being required. Secondly, there is a fear of running a business with a bank, and so basically, the upfront payment is, you can only get the loan when you provide the upfront payment with the 10%, which is 10% of the loan size, but basically that serves as a savings to you. So the bank will put it aside as a saving, and from time it will also generate interest. The other challenge that we have is with the product, what we are seeing is the low level of repayment, because the young people are not paying back the loans, which is a very, very disadvantaged stage, which is a very disadvantaged thing, because at the end, it has to do with the bad history that you are now also creating with the bank. If you look on the positive side, there are young people who has graduated from the scheme to the mainstream banking sector, because they were able to build a track record with the bank, and the bank has started trusting them. So meaning that, because for sure, the young people that we are saving is only up to 35 years of age, and it does not, definitely somehow they will get out of that age group, which is the way they will no more be a youth. So meaning that they have to be on their own to be able to approach now banks on their own. So that is one of the main reasons why we have developed this product, just to introduce actually the young people to the bank. One of the advantages is that your business don't need to be registered. You don't need to provide a comprehensive business plan. That is one of the advantages that this product has. So basically, we just use a template where we assist young entrepreneurs with just as a way of a business plan. Secondly, the product involves mentorship, the component of mentorship, and I think that is one of the greatest things that is also required when it comes to young entrepreneurs. Sometimes they don't actually need money, but just a business coaching, because that is one of the, they don't have experiences in terms of running their businesses successful. However, currently, the component of mentorship has been put on hold due to budgetary constraints. But we have realized when we had this mentorship component, which was also jointly done with SAP Compete, the payment rate was very successful and we had a very high payment rate. But after this, the mentorship program has been put on hold, now we are realizing that the repayment period is very low and most of the young entrepreneurs are defaulting on the loans. The other scheme that we have is the SME equipment scheme. Currently, we have funded or either successful, we have successful young entrepreneurs, which is 84 over all 14 regions. Yes, 84 individual businesses that we are funding over all 14 regions to the value of 2.1 million, because each business qualify for an equipment aid of 25,000 Namibian dollars, 6 from each region. And then we have also implemented last year 14 horticultural projects in all 14 regions, where we have 6 young people benefiting currently or who are currently on the project. But the anticipation or either the expectation is that they need to graduate after a few months, few period. And the first stage that we are doing is currently while we are waiting on the production or the harvesting, National Youth Council is advancing actually an allowance to these young entrepreneurs for a period of 6 months until they are able to start harvesting what they have produced.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Calista, for that. I think we are starting to run out of time. We have so much to discuss around these programs. But before I bring in the artisans, also after hearing all these programs that have been explained and all this information that is shared, I'm sure they have a couple of questions. But before allowing them to come in, I just wanted to pose the question maybe to Mr. Ayman and also Ms. Ulumbu, just in terms of the constraints. I also want to throw back that same question in terms of what are the constraints that prohibit young people from accessing this funding opportunities? Maybe we can start with you, Ms. Ulumbu. Ms. Ulumbu, I think you need to unmute your mic.
Yes, the constraints will be, of course, budgetary constraints. This time that you're in right now, it's a very difficult time that the budget is not quite enough to cater for all the young people that approach us and want funds to start or to improve their businesses. And also due to COVID, and of course the how the economy is going on, it's that young people are not able to pay back their loans because this is a fund. We are not able to then assist those young people that are coming up, because those ones that have already benefited are struggling to pay back their loans. The other thing is also young people are demoralized by the amount that we offer, especially the startup, where we require our young people to start with a 2,000, and they are moving in phases, which means the first loan is from a 2,000 to 5,000. A lot of young people feels that it's a small amount to start with. So many young people are then demoralized to start their enterprises with such a small amount. The other thing is also, I feel, is lack of innovation and consistency from the side of the young people, because then a lot of people come to us and want to start a business just because there's nothing else to do. And once an opportunity comes up, they leave the business, they have not paid back the loan, and then at the end of the day, it's really also demoralizing for the next person who would want to start a business.
All right, thank you. Mr. Amon, before I allow Mr. Mutulundila to come in, maybe just some of the, from your experience with some of the applications that the bank has received, what are some of the constraints, or what are some of the challenges that are prohibiting young people from accessing some of those funding opportunities of the DBN?
Thank you very much. Yes, if I look at the statistics in terms of the skills-based facility to date, we've received about 108 applications. From that 108 applications, about 27 was approved, and that is now for the 2020 financial year, 2020-2021, ending in March. About 7 million was approved. 27 in total is the number of applications. There's about 5 that is currently under active consideration with a value of about 3 million, which in all likelihood will also receive some approvals. 18 is still in active due diligence. So 18, we are still busy with the entrepreneur to finalize the application so that we can present it to the various committees, whereas about 4 is referred back to clients where there was a lack of certain information, and then there's about 54 applications that was declined. Now, the declines is mostly as a result of the poor business or the poor quality of the business plans being presented to the bank. At the end of the day, for the bank to make a decision as to extending a loan, keep in mind that the facilities is between 50,000 and 1 million. So it is quite substantial. And for us to be able to make a call on extending such a facility, obviously we do require a comprehensive business plan that addresses the risk and addresses the market in which the enterprise or the young professional want to operate in. So some of the business plans is unfortunately of poor quality. And what it means with poor quality is not necessarily the way that it's written up. It is mostly to do with the level of research that has been done to establish bankability. We receive many applications where, you know, the client is not sure where he's going to operate. He wants to do plumbing, but he's going to do it in Ongwena, he's going to do it in Bantu, Katima, everywhere. That is just not going to be viable for the entrepreneur, especially a young, small entrepreneur, to be able to provide to cover all these areas. So there's no focus in many of the plans. So bankability, because of the lack of research, is definitely one, and that results in poor quality of applications. Because this facility is pretty much catering for young entrepreneurs, obviously we also look at the type of, in addition to your skills, what has been your experience in operating in the field? Because, and also what has the young entrepreneur done to date to try and start something? The bottom line is that an entrepreneur that has started with $3,000 and has done even on average 2 plumbing jobs a month is still going to be a better prospect than a person that has had the qualification for 10 years, 5 years, but still, you know, didn't do anything. Now, there's nothing wrong. There is confusion as to why people can't start even with a small amount. But when it comes to establishing the credibility of a business case, we always look at what has been the experience. Many young entrepreneurs unfortunately cluster their business around certain areas. There's certain areas where we don't receive a lot of applications. And then there's other areas where we receive so many applications for the same trade that it makes it difficult to approve everyone. Say, for instance, if you are a plumber and 10 of these plumbing businesses is just concentrated in Otsumise as an example, it makes it difficult to establish viability, especially when it comes to the market. Now, another constraint is there will always be limited resources from the financier side. There is no unlimited resources. So we need to spend the little money that we have. We need to try and reach or achieve maximum impact with that money. So there's always going to be some challenges with resources. And then innovation. Innovation, unfortunately, lacks in so many enterprises, not just in the skill-based arena, but young entrepreneurs in general. The level of innovation, you know, sometimes it is copy and paste, and there's nothing wrong with copy and paste. We can still prove that your business would be able to survive in the market conditions. But, you know, the copy and paste is really a problem. I've had businesses applying for funding to set up a plumbing business or a hairdresser. And then you go through the business plan and you look at the address from where they operate. And then you realize that this person wants to operate from Washington, D.C. in America. So what it means is that they've drawn the business plan from Google, but they haven't, you know, updated it to speak to what they want to establish. So these are some of the challenges that we have, some of the things that entrepreneurs obtaining funding. Collateral in the young or the skill-based facility, collateral is not an obstacle. It's not the obstacle. Many of the entrepreneurs that apply, obviously apply for big amounts. When they hear $1 million is available, they apply for $1 million. And then 700,000 is going towards vehicles, with only 50,000 going towards the income generating assets. Now, obviously, when we encounter this, we advise the entrepreneur to take out some of the non-essentials like double caps, etc., and just concentrate on what is needed to get your business from point A to point B, that you can prove the concept without taking on too much debt that you will not be able to pay with the money that you obtain. So collateral is not the issue, but you have to understand, the higher you go up in terms of the amount, there might be some requirements. This is why the product is saying low to no collateral. So when you are, you know, when you want to access, say, $1 million, chances are that we might look at some form of collateral, even if it's the underlying asset that you want to finance. But most of the applications, the bulk of applications that we've approved under the 7 million roughly has been without collateral. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Mr. Ayman. I come back to you, Mr. Mwetulundila. I'm sure after hearing about all those programs, you do have a few questions on behalf of the artisans. I give it to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I really hope the majority of artisans are actually watching this program because it's very much informative. This is very important information which is being disseminated on this platform. But I still want to perhaps urge, especially DBN, for them to actually engage with the vocational training centers across the country so that they can see how they can incorporate some of this important information, at least from level 1, so that upon graduation, these guys are really well already familiarized with the information that is available, and they know where to go, which door to knock, so that then we really speed up the process of funding. Another thing that I've noted is that the number of artisans that have benefited from these beautiful facilities is very low as compared to the number of artisans which our VTCs are producing on a yearly basis. So I really want to perhaps ask my brother there from DBN to say, what is the plan of DBN going forward to actually ensure that there is maximization of the number of artisans that benefit from, especially from the skills-based facility, which doesn't require any collateral, so that at least per year, instead of the facility benefiting only 30 artisans, let us push it to 100, because I know for sure that there is so many artisans who are interested, aspiring entrepreneurs, but the time factor at which the applications are being processed is quite really a little bit discouraging. So perhaps the bank can just as well work on that so that we benefit many artisans on a yearly basis. The other suggestion that I have is, how about perhaps a DBN, Ministry of Industrialization, National Youth Council, as well as the Ministry of Youth, how about perhaps a platform is created for actually aspiring young entrepreneurs to do presentation at least on a quarterly basis per year, so that then the most beautiful, or let me say bankable, viable business proposals can actually be supported immediately, and so that then the processes of approving funding can be fast-tracked instead of really going the route of always paperwork. Paperwork, of course, very essential, but I think with a panel of independent judges really judging on the presentations that our young people are coming up with, there must be a short list that must be created for our artisans actually to gain immediate support from our funding institutions. Artisans are definitely integral to employment creation, and it's very unfortunate now that our country is trampling from the pandemic, and most of the companies which are owned by artisans are actually trampling, and in some instances, artisans are being retrenched from companies because they are unable to actually honor their financial obligations, and that has then led to an increase in the number of artisans that are joining the association. As I've mentioned, we are currently over 5,000 in the whole country, so you can imagine. I would therefore want to ask my brother from DBN to say, a Minister of Industrialization, to say, amongst the facilities which are available, can the association itself benefit? Because the association has got as well business plans within itself, which were of course collectively identified and agreed upon by the majority of artisans, where we would want to set up workshops in all 14 regions in the country where we have our members. These workshops are going to focus mainly on the manufacturing industry, so that we make sure that we absorb most of these artisans in our huge basket of unemployment. I would like to find out if there is perhaps a facility like that is earmarked for a huge group of young artisans, like the association, for example. Again, I just want to, perhaps my last question after that one is just to ask, to say, most of the areas where, especially the Ministry of Youth, if I was listening correctly, is focusing on, things like mushrooms, very important, of course, in the agricultural sector. But of course, in terms of employment creation, it doesn't really yield much of employment opportunities. I therefore would want to ask, let's say an artisan has got a huge business plan that has got potential to create mass employment for their fellow artisans. Let me say, for an example, a ceramic manufacturing factory, for example. What is the route to follow apart from these existing funding facilities? And this person doesn't have any collateral. They are dreaming of really coming up with a business like that. They have done their research, business proposal is on point. What should this young graduate or aspiring entrepreneur, where should they knock? Who should they actually speak to? I think with that, I can for now rest my case. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. Before I think we answer those questions, we're running out of time. I just also want to maybe post some of the questions from our social media platforms and also on our WhatsApp line, so that we can just answer them all in together, because we are running out of time. So if I can just ask the panelists, if any question is directed to you, you please just jot it down, and then you can include it also when you answer the questions, and then we can also move into, as also part of the closing remarks, because I think our show has to end by 8 o'clock and we are starting to run out of time. So another question, I think this one will go to Ms. Ulumbu. It says, how is our government making sure that the 121 funding projects to the youth in the constituencies are progressing? And also, is there any accountability through the constituency officers? Another question here is that is in terms of information accessibility. So a young person is saying that the challenge we have is how to access the information they access the information. We have youth forums and all different structures, but the information doesn't seem to reach young people. So maybe from our various panelists also, maybe as you conclude, just to also just put it out there as to if a young person wants to access these programs, where do they get the information? And then just another probably final question here is that I think this one is more towards DBN, is that DBN asks for collateral for SME financing. They ask for collateral, but through the credit scheme, credit guarantee scheme with the commercial banks, there is no collateral required. Why is this? Why is this so? So that's another question from another young person. I think for now those are the questions. If probably we could maybe start with you, Mr. Ayman.
Thank you very much. I think I will start with the first line of questioning, and I totally agree. More should be done to get the information out to especially the artisans. I don't think enough is being done. Yes, I've personally visited most of the regions, and together with my team, we've visited all the regions together with the Ministry of Trade and even the Minister to try and disseminate this information to the various towns to which we travel. But what I found astounding in many of these interventions was that many people actually don't even know about the development bank. Many people don't know about the products. Now, obviously, we are very visible within the news media. We also have now created our social media presence. We put a lot of ads in the newspapers. We do outreach to the various regions. We provide information through the likes of the Namibia Chamber and through the regional councils, etc., etc. But unfortunately, a lot of young people still don't know about it. So I also need to put this challenge back to young people. You need to equip yourself with the information that's out there. There's so many other funding programs out there that people don't know about, but the onus rests on you to ensure that you read through things, you read the newspaper, you read the social media platforms. There's various WhatsApp groups in the regions, I know, that disseminate information, that you go to the website of the Development Bank of Namibia. We are fully compliant. You can actually access all the information that you need by virtue of your smartphone, if you have access to that, or through our normal website. And all the information, including all the other products that I've talked about here, the information is available there. But we also need to do more, and this is why I agree with the speaker to say that perhaps we should also disseminate this information through, certain associations, including the association that you represent, because you have a large network of artisans. And if this information can be disseminated through there, I think we also would achieve an increase in the number of applications, especially from the various regions where we currently not getting it. So I suggest that we do that. We will continue, obviously, with our outreach. We will continue disseminating information through the regions, etc., etc. I think because your association speaks to this intervention, I think that would probably be a better way to make sure that you get some of the brochures, get some of the flyers, or even just the link to the website. As for your question as to how can we also engage VTCs, that is actually exactly what we're currently busy with. Yes, unfortunately, because of the impact of COVID, we were limited in our outreach, but we are working on a program where we also make sure that this information reaches all the VTCs, because there we have a captive audience. These people that eventually will graduate and that might be eligible for funding under this. So why not reach them at that very platform? So this is another thing that we are currently looking at to expand, but obviously we're also looking at how the COVID pandemic plays out so that we can physically also visit and disseminate some information as well as brochures and other information. So I totally agree with that. On your question as to how the association can perhaps benefit in terms of this, what we also said to many of the regions, the regional councillors, the town councillors, the town planners, etc., is to say, if you find enough people that you can put in one room that is eager for certain information, and you ask the development bank if we can send a representative, we will send a representative. And we can do the same for your association through various other platforms as well. to make sure that the information gets out there. If you want to host it, obviously on your own, and you're looking for some funding to fund the association, you will unfortunately have to go through our corporate social responsibility to see if funding can be made available for you to continue driving the message. So I hope that answers your question. Just to look at, I've talked about the access through the various platforms, the website, etc., etc. There was a question as to why is it that DBN requires collateral for SME lending, but when it comes to the guarantee scheme, that no collateral is required. Just to make sure, or just to make it clear, when we provide the guarantees to the commercial banks, it really does not prohibit. It doesn't say to the commercial banks, you cannot ask for collateral. The commercial banks, we depend on the commercial banks to do a due diligence on the business and to see what is the risk profile of that business. And if the 60% guarantee that we provide is sufficient to mitigate the risk, then that will be the end of it. If, however, for whatever reason, they feel that the risk is not properly mitigated by the 60% guarantee, they can also acquire or request some other collateral if need be, including some assets that is financed under that. Now, when it comes to the Development Bank of Namibia, SME financing will remain a high-risk area, but we do require collateral in some instances, with the exception, obviously, of tender-based applications. And we do not participate in the guarantee scheme. We are hosting the guarantee scheme, and we are not participating. So we cannot yet apply that guarantee of 60% with the Development Bank of Namibia. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayman. Unfortunately, we have literally, I think, 5 minutes to conclude. It was indeed an interesting discussion, and I think we need more time for this discussions of this nature. So in the interest of time, I think I'll just give each panelist maybe a minute or two to just say their concluding remarks. I'll start with you, Dr. Himavundu.
Thank you very much. Just in short, in terms of sector association support, we do have sector association support through our partners. And currently, metal fabrication is one of them. So I'm sure the artisans are also benefiting through that. Information accessibility is a major problem. We have 14 regional offices, and we urge the youth to visit our offices for information. And finally, in terms of the business plan competition that was suggested, we do support that notion, and we think we should take it up with the rest of the colleagues here on another platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Kalista? Your mic is muted.
Okay, I do agree with the Association of Awareness Creation. It is the duty of National Youth Council as one of our mandates to ensure that the young people are provided with relevant information. So what we can do, especially with the association, is that they can perhaps approach our offices and find a way how we can make sure that the information is reaching their partners. We can contact our other stakeholders like DPN and the ministry to provide us with the relevant information that we can further advance or either further create to the young people, especially in terms of the products that is available for the young people. So and then it's not that the young people, it's not that there is no products available, but the issue of because we are serving a different segment of young people. There are those who are really, really vulnerable, who don't have even access to internet facilities or either to social media. So basically, we will get in touch with all the other partners that is providing products to the young people to find a way that will be much user-friendly for the young people in terms of how they can benefit or either how they can get information, because at the end, it's about only information. Secondly, the motion of a business plan competition, I'm also in support of it, because previously we had a youth expo where young entrepreneurs have exhibited and has showcased their businesses. And through that process, we had people that has judged the best business ideas, and they were receiving funding. but then somehow we have stopped or either put this on hold. So maybe that is one of the things that we can start again when we have enough resources, because it was very, very helpful. We could bring in young people from all over the country to exhibit their best business ideas, where we have invited banks or either other SME development supporters that could pick an idea and further support it. So that is my last words, that I could say, maybe just to have a coordinated effort in terms of how we can advance the youth entrepreneurship products in the country.
Right, thank you, Ms. Kalista, and thank you for that commitment from the NYC to disseminate information to young people. Ms. Ulumbu, very briefly, please, your final words. Your mic is muted.
Entrepreneurship funding for young people requires collaborative efforts from all stakeholders, corporate organizations, financial institutions, government, and individuals, of course. So we all need to put in efforts, and the ministry is in constant engagement with all the stakeholders to ensure that young people, young entrepreneurs are supported not only financially, but also with technical support that they might need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mwetulundila. Your final words briefly, please, before we close.
Yes, thank you. I would like to urge all unemployed artisans to really take up these beautiful opportunities our government have really brought forward, because they have really got potential to make you realize your dreams of becoming successful entrepreneurs. But I would like to ask, to mention that we have a huge group of unemployed artisans, and therefore not all of those ones are going to become entrepreneurs, definitely. So I would like to urge really our government to try and open up opportunities at regional levels, especially in the construction and renovation sectors, for us to create opportunities for our members. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. I think one key thing that came out of our discussions today is that it is the onus lies on us to also equip ourselves with information. So only once you have the information, you're able to access the different opportunities that are out there. So for many young people in Namibia and in Africa at large, entrepreneurship might be the only path to a sustainable livelihood. The opportunities for young entrepreneurs in developing countries are far-reaching and central to economic development. And so entrepreneurship and SMEs play quite a vital role in fostering job creation and economic growth. Therefore, as young people, we cannot stay behind or be left out in this discussion around funding for young entrepreneurs or funding for SMEs. This is quite a crucial discussion that we should actively participate in. Let this discussion not end here tonight, but let it continue in our regions, in our districts, in our branches and sections, and as well as in our communities. A big thank you to all our panelists this evening. Thank you so much for availing your time and also for coming to share with us and our young viewers on the different programs available for different funding programs available for young entrepreneurs. I cannot thank you. Then also thank you so much to all our viewers for tuning in, for the questions that were sent through our social media platforms, and also for actively participating. So if there's any question that was not asked or any question that you still have, you can still post it, you can still send it to us, and we'll also make sure that we reach out to our panelists to be able to answer these questions, and in the coming week, we can always post them on our social media platforms. So from us here at the SWAPO Party headquarters, thank you so much. Good night, have a blessed